Have you ever set your alarm for 5 a.m. full of determination, only to hit snooze 5 times and wake up at 8? Maybe you promised yourself you'd start exercising before work, but your bed felt too warm. Perhaps you planned to work on your dreams before the world woke up, but you told yourself just 10 more minutes until those minutes became hours. Maybe you've tried 100 times to build discipline, but every time you fail by sunrise. If that sounds like you, if your mornings are filled with broken promises to yourself, then this story is for you. Because once, there was a young man who couldn't wake up early to save his life until he remembered a lesson his father taught him in the rice fields, a lesson about discipline that had nothing to do with motivation and everything to do with the weather. 30 years ago, in a small farming village nestled between green mountains and endless rice fields, there lived a boy named David. David was 8 years old, full of energy during the day, but he hated one thing more than anything else in the world: waking up at 5 a.m. every single morning. Before the sun painted the sky, David's father would shake him awake. "Time to work, son, the fields are waiting." And every single morning, young David would groan, "Papa, just 5 more minutes, I'm so tired." But his father never accepted excuses. Rain or shine, monsoon or drought, freezing winter mornings or humid summer dawns, the rule never changed. At 5 a.m., they went to the fields. David would stumble out of bed, his small body heavy with sleep, and follow his father into the darkness. Sometimes it was raining so hard he couldn't see 3 feet ahead. Sometimes the cold bit through his thin clothes like knives. Sometimes he was so tired he cried while walking. "Papa, why do we have to go when it's raining?" he would ask, water dripping from his hair. His father, bent over the rice plants, would say simply, "Because the rice doesn't care about the weather. It needs care every day, rain or shine." "But I'm tired, Papa." "The rice doesn't care if you're tired." "But it's cold." "The rice doesn't care if you're cold." Young David didn't understand. He thought his father was cruel, unfair. Why couldn't they sleep in on rainy days like other families? Why couldn't they rest when they were tired? But every morning without fail, his father woke him. And every morning without fail, they went to the fields. This continued for 10 years. When David turned 18, he left the village for the city. He wanted education, opportunity, a life that didn't start at 5 a.m. in the rain. He promised himself, "I'll never wake up that early again." David moved to the capital city for university. He worked part-time jobs to pay for school. He had big dreams: finish his degree, start a business, build something meaningful. But there was one problem. He couldn't maintain any discipline. He would set goals: "I'll study every morning before class," but he'd sleep through his alarm. "I'll work on my business plan on weekends," but he'd waste the day scrolling on his phone, telling himself he'd start tomorrow. Years passed this way. David graduated, but barely. He started 3 businesses, but abandoned all of them when they got difficult. He tried learning new skills, but gave up after a few weeks. By age 28, he was still stuck in the same entry-level job, living paycheck to paycheck, watching his old classmates succeed while he stayed in place. One Sunday morning, David woke up at 11 a.m. again. The whole morning wasted again. He had planned to work on his 4th business idea, but here he was, another day gone before it even started. He sat on the edge of his bed, head in his hands, and something his father used to say echoed in his mind: "The rice doesn't care about the weather." David looked around his small apartment, unfinished projects, unpaid bills, unfulfilled dreams, and suddenly, for the first time in 10 years, he understood something. His father wasn't teaching him about farming. He was teaching him about discipline. That night, David bought a train ticket. He was going home. David arrived at his childhood home just before sunrise. His father was already awake, preparing to go to the fields. At 58 years old, he still woke at 5 a.m., still worked rain or shine. "Papa," David said quietly from the doorway, "can I go to the fields with you like before?" His father looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Get your boots." They walked in silence through the pre-dawn darkness, just like they had 1,000 times when David was young. The air was cold, a light rain was falling. David's body, soft from years of sleeping in, protested every step. When they reached the fields, his father knelt in the mud and began checking the rice plants one by one, just as he always had. David knelt beside him. After several minutes, he finally asked the question burning in his chest. "Papa, why did you make me wake up so early every single day, rain or shine?" His father didn't look up from the rice. He continued working as he spoke. "David, do you see these plants?" "Yes, Papa." Some days the weather is perfect for farming, sunny, warm, energizing. Those days everyone works, easy days. He pulled a weed from the soil. But most days are not perfect. Too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. If I only worked on perfect days, my family would starve. His father finally looked at David. Success doesn't come from working when you feel like it. Success comes from working, especially when you don't feel like it. That's discipline. He gestured to the fields around them. These fields have fed our family for 40 years, not because I'm talented, not because I'm lucky, but because I show up at 5 a.m. every day, rain or shine. You want to know the secret, David? There is no secret, no motivation trick, no perfect system. He placed a muddy hand on David's shoulder. It's simple. You decide what must be done, then you do it every day no matter what the weather is. When you were young, I knew you didn't understand. I knew I was cruel, but I wasn't teaching you to farm. I was teaching you that consistency beats intensity, that discipline defeats motivation. He smiled softly. Motivation is weather, son. Some days it's there, most days it's not. But discipline is showing up regardless of the weather. David felt tears mix with the rain on his face. I forgot, Papa. I forgot everything you taught me. Then remember now, it's not too late. That night, David made a decision that would change his life. He would wake up at 5 a.m. every single day for 90 days, no exceptions, no matter what the weather, literal or metaphorical. He set his alarm for 4:55 a.m. The first morning, the alarm rang in the darkness. His body screamed to stay in bed. His mind created 100 excuses. You're tired, you can start tomorrow, one day won't matter. But then he remembered, the rice doesn't care about the weather. He got up. Day 3, it was raining, his bed was warm, every cell in his body wanted to sleep. He got up anyway. Day 7, he had barely slept, his eyes burned with exhaustion. He got up anyway. Day 12, it was Sunday, all his friends were sleeping in. He got up anyway. Something began to change around week 3. Waking at 5 a.m. was still hard, but David discovered something powerful. He had 2 quiet hours before the world woke up. 2 hours where nobody needed him, no emails, no distractions, just him and his dreams. He used that time to work on his business idea, the 4th attempt, but this time it was different, because this time he showed up every single day. Rain or shine, tired or energized, motivated or not, he showed up. 1 hour of focused work every morning, 90 days straight. By day 30, he'd completed more than in the previous 3 years combined. By day 60, his business was generating its first income. By day 90, he had something he'd never had before, momentum. But the discipline didn't stop at waking up early. The 5 a.m. rule taught him a deeper truth. If he could do one hard thing consistently, he could do anything consistently. He applied the same principle to exercise, to learning, to his relationships, to saving money. Rain or shine, motivated or not, show up. 1 year later, David's business had grown enough that he could quit his job. 2 years later, he had employees. 3 years later, he was financially free. But the alarm still rang at 5 a.m. because by then, David understood. The 5 a.m. wake-up wasn't about time. It was about keeping a promise to himself every single day, regardless of the weather. 5 years after that rainy morning conversation, David stood in his father's rice fields again, but this time he brought his own 8-year-old son. At 5 a.m., he woke the boy gently. "Time to work, son. Grandpa's waiting." His son groaned. "Papa, I'm tired. Can't we sleep more?" David smiled, remembering himself at that age. He knelt beside his son's bed and said, "I know you're tired, but someday you'll understand. This isn't about rice. This is about becoming someone who keeps promises to himself. Rain or shine, my friend." David's story is your story. It's the story of every person who wants to change but keeps hitting the snooze button on their dreams. Here's what David's father understood that most people don't. Discipline is not about feeling motivated. Motivation is weather. It changes every day. Some days sunny, some days stormy. You can't control it. But discipline is your choice. Rain or shine, tired or energized, inspired or empty, you choose to show up anyway. Let me give you the exact framework David used. First, choose one thing, just one, not 10 goals, one non-negotiable commitment. For David, it was the 5 a.m. wake-up. For you, it might be 30 minutes of focused work, or 20 minutes of exercise, or reading 10 pages. Pick one. Second, do it for 90 days, not when you feel like it, every single day. Mark it on a calendar. Break the chain and you start over. Third, expect bad weather. Some mornings you'll be exhausted, some days you'll be sick, some weeks will be chaos. That's not a reason to quit. That's the whole point. Discipline is doing it especially when you don't feel like it. So here's my challenge to you, and I want you to take this seriously. Tomorrow morning, set your alarm 30 minutes earlier than usual, not 2 hours, just 30 minutes. And for the next 90 days, when that alarm rings, I want you to remember 5 words. The rice doesn't care about the weather. Your dreams don't care if you're tired. Your goals don't care if it's raining. Your future self doesn't care about your excuses. They only care about one thing. Did you show up? You don't need to be motivated. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to keep showing up, rain or shine. If this story gave you the wake-up call you needed, literally, then do 3 things right now. First, like this video. It tells me this message resonated. Second, share it with someone who keeps